follow-up from last week's video because a lot of people really liked it, where I was showing you how you can improvise over a chord loop using specific concepts so you can actually isolate different concepts of improvisation, like rhythm, scales, and just trying to improvise around one element at a time to boost your skills and confidence, and actually boost your ear training as well, because you get to really understand the melodic effect of that specific concept. So today I wanted to do the same and kind of follow up and do like a second take on this over another loop, and I chose typical Latin jazz montuno, and this is based on a famous song by Celia Cruz, Usted Abusó. It's a typical nice turnaround that you're gonna hear. And what I did is I played 4 alto sax solos, right? And on each take, I did a very particular thing. So I want you to really think about this, of what I call narrowing the subject and expanding the depth. Instead of putting a chord loop and start improvising like you would normally do and hope that the scales and the licks and patterns show up when you're playing, instead of that, you're going to be specifically focused on one thing, right? For example, you're going to hear me on the take 1, I'm just focusing on rhythm. And of course, this is, on the last week I did a similar chord progression where an R&B, sort of neo-soul R&B, and now I'm doing kind of like a very similar progression on a very sort of opposite style, right? Also very rhythmical, but I'm doing it on a literally like a salsa breakdown, right? Much faster, but it's the same concept. So rhythm is like that number one thing that you need to be aware of. And this is where, specifically in this kind of styles from Latin or even like funky R&B, a lot of sax players or just melodic instruments just fail when they improvise because of the lack of rhythmic vocabulary and rhythmic precision. So my take 1 is going to be very much focused on rhythmic ideas that I can repeat and expand and sort of like try to see. Of course, you're going to hear me still play around the chords, okay, because I know them, but the main focus there is rhythm. Even if you have to repeat 2 notes for the whole thing, or 2 notes per chord, or even if you just grab like this is on for in concert, it's going to be in technically F major. What I'm doing is A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7, and that just loops, right? I'm going to be playing it on the alto, so it's going to be F sharp minor 7, B7, and then E minor 7, A7, and that's the loop for the alto. So I'm going to leave it here so you know both for concert and for the alto what I'm about to play. Okay, so pass 1 is going to be very rhythmic. Just focus on rhythmic ideas. I'm going to grab this chord loop, and as I'm playing rhythms over it, I'm going to really pay attention to the harmony, because a lot of the great thing about practicing loops like this is that you get to really internalize and absorb that harmony rather than the whole tune. You get to internalize this very common chord progression. So I recommend you really do it with extremely common chord progressions, like I've done here, right, with a turnaround. And I love doing this. I did the play along right now. I grabbed a few loops from Splice and then did the piano and the bass. And by the way, I'm leaving a link where you can get the play along for free. You can download it right below, so make sure to check it out. Okay, so pass 1 is going to be rhythmic ideas. Sometimes for this section, what I really think about is, rather than me being a soloist completely loose, I think more in the concept of, how about I'm part of a horn section and I'm more of a background. So I have to play like boo 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 ba ba boo 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 ba ba boo ba da boo ba 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 boo. So if I really start singing rhythms over this and think more like an ensemble, it really helps me lock it in. So what I will do first right now is you'll hear the play along so you get an idea of the vibe of what we're going to be doing, and then we'll continue. So here's the play along with the chords. This is how it sounds. Awesome, super fun, right? So I hear this and there's just so many ideas going on. I want to play so many things, but this is a very controlled way of doing it. So my first pass is going to be rhythm. So you can literally play this and sing rhythms, right? Okay, I'm already singing pitches, but you know what I mean? Like, really get precision in your singing. A lot of people underestimate the power of really singing rhythmic ideas, right? Because then you'll translate those to your horn. So That's the first pass. I'm going to do it right now. It's called the rhythmic pass. So my main focus, of course, I'm still going to play around the chords a little bit, but my main focus is going to be at least 90% on the rhythmic ideas, repeating rhythmic elements, expanding the same rhythm. It's going to sound very motivic, almost like I'm playing little background lines, right? So here it is. All right, cool. Now it's pretty nice sound, very cohesive. Now for what you're aiming for on the rhythm pass is cohesiveness, right? You need to sound super cohesive and articulate. It's really like if you compare it to speech, when you speak sort of slower but very precise statements, like everything coming out of your mouth is extremely clear and precise. If you think about that, because a lot of people improvise and then there's like what I call the noodling, which is a lush of unprecise ideas, which are uneven with an inaccurate rhythm, hence sounding like if you would be speaking all of this Russian, like, your words wouldn't make sense. Maybe you get something out of it, but you know what I mean? So for me, the rhythmic pass is about precision, accuracy, sounding motivic, cohesive, and musical. Yet very simple though. It's very simple. I'm not playing anything complicated. I'm trying on purpose if you have to even repeat two notes. As long as you can lock in precise rhythms. If you want, you can start with just one rhythm. Ba ba do ba ba, 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 and simply repeat it over all the chords, right? In this case, it's just one chord per measure. So, or you can do a 2-measure rhythm, whatever you feel comfortable. I have other videos where I talk about rhythm, and in my improv mastery circle, I focus excessively on rhythmic vocabulary because it's literally the most important thing that you can work on. So that was the rhythm path. I always like to start this way because it does a few things. It makes me play less because when you think on rhythms, all of a sudden you're like less rushed to play because you have to be really precise on the rhythms. I have to sing them in my head as I'm playing them. Makes me play instantly more musical. I play less, hence I actually get to hear the relationship of the lines I'm playing against the chords better. So I get to absorb the chords. In fact, what I recommend you with this sort of play along, simply listen to the play along and kind of absorb the chords and try to sing rhythmic ideas. Then little by little, I'm going to show you now in the next, which is the chord path, a few other things that you can do, but literally absorb the chords on your ears is going to help you and then play. Okay, so the next path is going to be the chord path. Now for this path, I'm going to share with you the matrix of inversions. Okay, if you want to know really what this is, I have another video and I left it at the end and in the description where I break it down step by step, and it's one of my main things that I talk about inside my improv mastery circle on my courses. And the matrix of inversions is basically like a chord loop like this, which is 4 chords. It literally displays, like you can see the 4 chords here, and you put all the inversions, right? The first system is all chords in root position. The second system is all chords in first inversion, then in second inversion, and then in third inversion. And the way you would practice this is first you would absorb the sound of each inversion at a time, and later on you will mix and match randomly, and you would go from one inversion to the next. Simply have a visual aid where you can look at all the chord tones in a much more musical way. Now, I don't want to deep dive into this in this video because I've already done it on others. So make sure to go to the link in the description, and at the end, I left on the end screen, I'm leaving my video where you can see exactly how I break it down in a 2-5-1 and the matrix of inversions, okay? But here it is. I'm going to leave this here because what I'm going to do on this pass is I'm going to strictly only do and play chord tones using the inversions, okay? I talk also a lot about shapes, so when you think about chord tones and scales or anything, to me, shapes is really important. What I mean with shape, the direction of your lines, right? You don't just want to play a chord up and down, da, 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 da. You want to actually split it, deconstruct it, which is a lot of what I teach my coaching students and inside my Improve Mastery Circle is about how to gain melodic language with one simple thing. So on this pass, now I'm going to keep the rhythms going on. I'm going to keep the rhythmic ideas, but now my priority will go on to really getting those chords in my fingers. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to be playing anything else other than the chord tones. Okay, so all the notes you see here in this matrix are the ones that I'm going to play. Of course, I'm going to break them up. I'm going to play them in different octaves. And I might like repeat and do all sorts of things that I deconstruct them, right? But I'm not playing any other note than the chord tone. And this is an amazing limitation. I actually had to do this a few times because I'm already used to playing more things. But when you limit yourself to that, limitation boosts creativity. So the fact that you can limit yourself to chord tones, especially if you're new to chords and you really don't have the language, this is such a beautiful thing to do, because by focusing on only playing the chord tones, especially if you can literally have a visual aid like the matrix, so you don't have to like memorize them yet. You can put them there and it's okay to look at them and sort of like play with rhythms while looking at the chords. But what happens is you're going to internalize the melodic sound of the chords. There's so much melodic content packed in the chord inversions themselves and in the chord tones that by isolating them and only playing those, you're going to really internalize not just the actual vertical sound, because when we hear the chord loop and when we hear the rhythm section, we're hearing the vertical kind of sound of things. But when you like get to play the chord tones, you really hear this beautiful melodic sound that's already packed in there, especially when you mix it up with rhythms, which is what I'm going to do now. Pass 2, the chord pass. But I'm going to mix, of course. I'm going to still keep the rhythms as my vehicle, as the main engine driving my phrases. But now the focus is going to be only chord tones, basically chord inversions. So I'm going to play it right now. And I'm going to leave the matrix of inversions here visually as I play, so you can kind of follow the chords, right? I'm going to put it for now for the alto transposition because it makes sense, right? Let's see if I put the concert one as well. And then just pay attention, like try to look at the chord tones, try to look at the chords and hear what I play. And keep in mind, I'm not playing one single note that is not a chord tone from the specific chord. So here's the chord path. Awesome. Pretty cool sound right now. It's very sort of still, like it's simple, but you can hear so much melodic content packed on the chords, right? And there's like you saw me like going around the shapes, breaking the octave, going down and up, really focusing on shapes, because shapes is the I always say rhythm is the vehicle and the engine of your phrases, and the shapes is the directions and responsible for the expression. So a good shape, any good phrase, you know, you can play the same chord, right? Like you can literally change the shape and it will automatically sound different, more expressive, or just in a different direction, right? As you could hear there on the chord pass. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next pass. And for the next pass, I wanted to do one that I actually didn't do last time. I did a chromatic and scale pass, but for this one, I do want to give scales a place. Okay, now this is kind of a tricky thing for me because I don't like teaching with scales, because a lot of people learn with scales and chord scales and they get obsessed about the scale notes that should go with the chord, and they never learn how to make anything musical out of it. They're just like notes to sound okay. But you really need to work first on the chords, the rhythms. To me, that's more of the meat, right? And then the scales, of course, they can give you an amazing sound. But what you're going to hear me playing now is going to be playing around the scales. But it sounds like that because I've really worked on shapes and chords. So it's not going to be just it's not going to be scales up and down. Okay, I want you really to avoid that. You still need to think about rhythm and shape. So even if you do use the scales, I'm going to use a particular scale for each one, right? So for example, for this F sharp minor 7, here for the alto, I'm going to use probably just a D major scale. And then what I'm going to do is, because this, you heard, this kind of has two sections. On the first time, I'm going to keep very diatonic scales. So for example, I'm not going to do Dorian for the F sharp minor because it's going to sound a little more off. I'm just going to play around the D major scale, right? And then for the B7, I'm going to play literally just like the Mixolydian scale. Okay, Mixolydian with, now if you think about diatonically, I don't want to go too deep in scales, but I'm simply, if you put the chord tones like this and simply filling the notes diatonically to the key that you're in, we're in D major for the alto, so it ends up being a, you know, B7 Mixolydian flat 13. Now it's just because the G is natural on this key signature, right? If I did the G sharp, it's going to sound more off. So in this case, it's what you would technically call this a Mixolydian flat 13. I'm going to keep it this way, okay? And then on the E minor 7, Dorian, right? And then on the A7, Mixolydian. That's it. That's it for this. And now you're going to hear it. I'm going to put a note on the screen. And then the second time through, I'm going to play more altered scales. And that's where it's going to get really interesting. So I'm going to use the Dorian scale for the F sharp minor 7, getting that G sharp, which is outside the key. So it's going to sound a little more dissonant and heavy, or more spicy, right? Which is really cool. Then for the B7, I'm going to play around the tension. So instead of having a natural 9, I'm going to use the flat 9 and sharp 9, which technically people call it the Mixolydian flat 9, flat 13, with also the sharp 9. It's just kind of a, you know, destroys my brain to even think about the name. Don't worry about it. I'm going to leave it here, but that's just the notes, right? Literally, the best way, if you want to find this chord scales, is put the chord tones, right? And then fill in the blanks, the rest of the passing notes of the scale. You fill it with notes that are diatonic to the tonality you're in. In this case, we're in D major for the alto, so I'm going to keep those notes. Right now, I'm actually altering those, right? So instead of the C sharp, which would be a diatonic note in D major, I'm picking the C natural or the D sharp to get that really kind of crunchy, altered dominant sound. Now for the E, I'm gonna keep it with the Dorian sound, right? And of course, some of these notes are tensions, and on this other video where I really talk specifically about the matrix of inversions, I actually show you how to use tensions more in a chord way. So make sure to watch that, okay? So now for the A7, instead of the Mixolydian, I'm going to do the same scale. Now it's going to sound even more harsh because instead of F sharp, I'm going to play F natural, which is the flat 13, and then a B flat and B natural, right? And B flat and C natural. So it's going to give me an A7, you know, Mixolydian flat 9, flat 13, with also the sharp 9. Anyway, I'm leaving the scales here. So the first pass, I'm going to keep it more on the natural side, more diatonic, and then you're going to hear it. I'm going to change it up so you can visually see it. Once I'm playing the second time of the loop, I'm going to change to the altered sounding scales. Now, keep in mind, I'm really working on shapes and rhythms still. So it's not just playing the scales up and down. It's really trying to make interesting shapes and rhythms with the scale. Here we go, the scale pass. Awesome, pretty cool. Now you get a totally different vibe. Right now, scales can be really nice, as you can see, especially once you go to the step we're gonna go now, when you start combining these elements. So all of a sudden now from the chords, you can add scales, and it feels much more musical, because the chord sound will give you that accuracy and melodic shape, and then the scales will give you this beautiful passing tones. But if you just do the scales and never do the chords and the inversions, then you are kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because you're going to end up sounding too scaly, right? So you can see the progress of things. Now for the next pass, I'm going to do, within the same pass, I'm going to do now chromatic approaches. And at the end, the last part of my performance, you're going to hear me simply apply everything you've heard on this video. Okay, so for chromatic approach, it's simply literally, you know, a lot of people are scared or don't know how to use chromatic approach, but it's actually very easy once you know the chords really well and you have the scales and the chords and interesting ideas. Chromatic approach literally just serves as this spicy notes that can go around anything else that you already know how to play. So for me, you're going to hear it from the chord tones. You know, if it's an F sharp minor 7, you might hear me play F natural going to the F sharp. You might hear me playing G sharp going to the A, right? Or C natural going to the C. It's literally a note below the next chord tone, or 2 notes below. Now, there's a whole concept of chromatic approach. If you want to learn and master chromatic approach in your instrument and understand how to apply it to your solos and construct phrases with it, I'm also leaving a link to my chromatic approach ebook, a little product here. So you can click right here or go to the description and check out and get my little ebook of chromatic approach. I explain you exactly the most typical chromatic approach and how you can use them and how it can spice up your sound, and exercises that you can practice daily that are going to really boost your melodic language and kind of connect the chords in a much more interesting way. So here's the link right here, and you can check it out. Now let's do this. So what you're going to hear, I'm going to label it properly. You're going to hear first the chromatic pass, or it's going to be very specifically me trying to use a lot of chromatic approach and simple ideas. And then on the second pass, which is already on the same performance, I'm simply going to apply everything you've heard on the video, right? So you're going to hear rhythms, chords, a little bit of scales, chromatic approach, altered scale, like literally, but it becomes a lot easier all of a sudden because I isolated each one and I understand the melodic power of each element. That's the cool thing about isolating the elements. When you do just the chord tones, you all of a sudden you expand your ear to understand the melodic effect of the chord tones and the inversions. When you do only chromatic approach, you all of a sudden really get the vibe of how chromatic approach affects the melody, right? When you do the scales, you kind of understand and explore them. You know, a lot of people just stay with the scales or stay with the chords, but just doing like the root position, right? And then rhythm is that thing, the pillar, the main pillar, that's going to make any of this sound musical. That's the importance of rhythm. Rhythm is what's going to make all of the other elements sound cohesive and musical. Without good rhythm, then all of the other stuff is useless, which is why I do the rhythm pass first. And I really try to get a good rhythmic ideas. And then of course, later on, you know, you're going to hear me play. It's going to end up with like double time licks and a lot of like faster phrases, but it's all using the elements that we've talked about on this video. So let's check it out. fun, right? So you can hear the difference. Like at the beginning, I was just playing the chromatic approach, and then I ended up playing literally everything we've talked about on this video. So that's pretty nice. I encourage you to do that. Grab a chord loop. You know, if it's 4 chords is too much, do it with 2 chords. And a lot of you guys might already use like iReal Pro or something like that, where you can input the chords and use different like backing tracks and put it as a jazz ballad, as a swing, put it as anything. But anyway, I'm leaving this play along. I usually don't do this, but I'm gonna do it for this video. You can download the play along on the link below for free. Okay, so just go below. I left a bunch of links there, so just go for the one that says download the play along here. If you want to use this one, then feel free to use it. You're gonna have a lot of fun with this. Now, if you want to really take your playing to the next level, I also want to invite you to join my Improv Mastery Circle, which I also left a very special link with a special offer for you. If you're a subscriber, you're going to see that on the link below as well. This is my exclusive private community where I host my step-by-step system, where I coach my students live, give them feedback. I do live coaching calls where you can literally ask questions. I break down specific concepts. I develop practice challenges and routines for you so that you don't have to do this alone. If you're tired of like watching hundreds of YouTube videos, and even though it's good information like this, but you're still kind of confused of what to do first or how to organize your practice, and this is a great place. We're over 100 members now, so it's a great place to grow, and it's just so much more than a course. It's really a coaching experience. So check it out on the link below, the Improv Mastery Circle. I left it there. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and leave in the comments what resonated with you from this video. If you have any questions, if something was not clear, please leave it in the comments. I read them all. Eventually I will reply. And leave also in the comments what would you like to see next. There's a bunch of like new videos coming up on the next month, like arranging and you know, about composition as well, not just improvisation. So a lot of cool things coming up. So just make sure to leave that in the comment, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye.